Traveling through the Arcola Channel, we leave Crystal Bay and the upper lake behind us and pass under the Dakota Rail Trail and Shoreline Drive, or County Road 15. We find ourselves on the lower lake again. This time we're going to look at Smith's Bay and Browns Bay. Smith's Bay is 266 acres and has about 2 miles of shoreline stretching from Huntington Point in the west to Brackett's Point in the east. Traveling east along Shoreline Drive, one of the first docks we come to belongs to the Hennepin County Sheriff's Water Patrol. They use this dock to meet ambulances during medical emergencies and for transferring to squad cars during arrests. Smith's Bay is named for Elliott Smith, who owned a farm on its shore until James J. Hill bought it in 1880 to expand his railroad. Elliott Smith is one of the Smith brothers, for which Smithtown Bay is also named. When you're traveling by car on County Road 15, you don't often see a boat in this close to shore. This is because Smith's Bay is somewhat shallow and very weedy. I can't get an accurate reading on my depth finder because of all the weeds, but I know it's under 5 feet deep right here. The next landmark along the north shore of Smith's Bay is the marina called Your Boat Club. This marina, positioned on a man-made peninsula, has been here for many years under many names. Before it was Your Boat Club, it was part of the North Shore Marina franchise. For many years before that, it was called Sailor's World. And if you're older than dirt like me, you'll remember it being Paul's Landing back in the 1970s. The next marina down the line is a private one belonging to the Fox Hill Homeowners Association. Fox Hill is made up of 14 homes on Heritage Lane across the highway from the marina. East of Fox Hill is the former estate of Irwin Jacobs. Jacobs was a Minneapolis business entrepreneur who in 1973 founded the Comb Company, which later grew into the CVN television network. He also was a minority owner of the Minnesota Vikings. He and his wife Alexandria raised 5 children on this 32-acre estate from the early 1970s until the couple's tragic death in 2019. After their passing, the children tore down the mansion and cut up the property into lots, which are still being developed today. Turning south from here, we begin exploring Brackett's Point. Originally called Starvation Point, as local lore tells of some Minnetonka Mills residents who found the corpse of a French fur trapper who had starved to death on the peninsula during the winter of 1852. In 1880, former Minneapolis mayor and park board commissioner George A. Brackett purchased the point to build his new home. Workers on the estate found the fur trappers' remains and gave them a proper burial at the tip of the point. Brackett renamed the property Orono Point after his home in Orono, Maine. After Brackett passed away in 1921, locals began referring to it as Brackett's Point. Now it's time to talk about the Pillsburys. Charles Pillsbury moved to Minneapolis in 1869 and began a milling business that would become a world leader in flour. Charles' son John acquired land on Orono Point from the estate of fellow flour magnate William Dunwoody, and he and his wife Eleanor built the estate Southaways in 1919. Eleanor came up with the name Southaways because once you get to Brackett's Point, the house is just south a ways. Brackett's Point juts out into the lake, dividing it into Smith's Bay in the west and Browns Bay in the east. This fabulous mansion on the tip of Brackett's Point is owned by pharmaceutical entrepreneur Bruce Paddock. I wonder if he knew about the French fur trapper that was buried here. Browns Bay is named for James Brown, who was the first settler to build a cabin on the bay. The bay is 696 acres and has 3.5 miles of shoreline, starting at Brackett's Point here in the west end and ending at Lookout Point on the Ferndale Peninsula in the east. Getting back to the Pillsburys, the Southaways estate was torn down in 2018 after being on the market for 10 years with no buyers. As you can see, the view of the property from here on the Browns Bay side was much more revealing than the Smiths Bay side. In 1979, it was portrayed as Cloris Leachman and Annette O'Toole's home in the motion picture Fooling Around. Sadly, after being razed, the estate was divided into lots by a developer and sold, with the majority of it going to build this huge monstrosity. This home is truly remarkable and beautiful, but I have a soft spot for history and feel that being able to say something used to belong to someone famous is priceless by comparison. After sailing up the Browns Bay side of Brackett's Point, we return to Shoreline Drive. Here we find the channel heading into Lake Tanager. This bridge was completely replaced in 2021. And if you're an old fart like me, you'll recall that it was also replaced in 1978. It seems like 43 years isn't a very long time for a bridge. Originally called Mud Lake, Lake Tanager is 51 acres and has a little over a mile of shoreline. It's 20 feet deep at its deepest point, but most of the bay is relatively shallow. This piece of shoreline was the backside of the 32-acre Irwin Jacobs estate. They kept their marina here as it provided better access to the lake than trying to cross County Road 15 on the Smiths Bay side. Along the north shore of Lake Tanager is where the Long Lake Creek enters Lake Minnetonka. Flowing from Long Lake, the creek is one of four major waterways that feed Lake Minnetonka. It is maintained and monitored by the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. Crossing the creek at its terminus is the Dakota Rail Regional Trail, which begins in Shaver Park in Wayzata and goes all the way out to New Germany. I'd like to do a video on the Dakota Rail Trail someday, but I suspect flying a drone from a bicycle might prove to be much harder than from a boat. On the narrow isthmus of land between Lake Tanager and Browns Bay, we find the Lake Minnetonka version of River Valley Marine. This marina used to be part of the North Shore Marina franchise. Before that, it was called Windward Marine. This concludes our video on Smiths and Browns Bay. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click on like and subscribe to see more videos about Lake Minnetonka.